Hello and welcome, dear friends. I am Nicole Beecham, and this is the Energetic Pathway Podcast, Journey Back to Yourself. I invite you to join me each week as we explore stories, insights, and resources through the lens of vulnerability and authenticity, with a little bit of humor along the way. Let's dive into today's topic together. I am Nicole Beecham, and I'm here with my dear friend, Brock.
Hey, everybody.
Today, we're wanting to start talking about why we're here, why we're doing this podcast, and what it was like when we first realized that we were on a journey back to ourselves. Throughout the different episodes, we'll talk about what that looks like, what the trials are, the triumphs. And I think my heart and passion for this is to make sure we do so in a way that honors the hard, that honors where we've came from. It honors everyone in our story, right? Because things that may have happened to us and trauma is done unintentionally. And then also to be able to add some humor and some fun and some comedy to it.
So yeah, like as we're getting started, I think maybe what can people expect, Nicole? Like as we're going forward, like what's the goal here? What are we tackling?
Yeah, I think it's being able to see it modeled. So like being able to see what it looks like for two people to have authentic conversation in a safe place where you and I are not going to agree on everything, but we can share vulnerably. We can step into that space. We can create that space for one another and hold space for the hard, hold space for the confusing, for the beautiful, for all the things that are ultimately out there that we're all experiencing. So I think for me, in the beginning of my journey, I felt so alone in it. Like there was like a dark night of the soul where I just felt like it was just me. Nobody understood what I was going through. I didn't have many outlets to feel seen in. My hope is that this can be that for some people. This can be a place where they can feel seen. They can feel understood. They can feel known and heard.
Yeah, I think there's something special about getting to hear actually who somebody is, right? Like I think we all can resonate with that. There's people that we know and there's people that we actually know. And I think one of the things that I passionate about in life is allowing people a space to actually be who they actually are. And man, if we can have something created here as messy, as unprofessional as it may be, that any listener or even just each other can just get a step closer to that, step closer to being comfortable, to hear what it looks like to not care what you say and somebody know, right? Like I think there's just a lot of hurting people that I'm around these days, and people who don't have somebody, and people who don't even know what it looks like to share who they are. And so having a space that we can start to unpack some of those layers piece by piece and have people kind of just patiently sit around and enter it with us, I think that is something worth doing. Nicole and I could sit at a coffee shop and talk about this, but the point is for you. The point is to give you a resource to hear two strangers you don't even know and maybe learn a little bit more about life alongside of us.
When I think back to like how we first met and how it's transpired for us to be here doing this podcast, like it's just so aligned, and I would have never imagined it when we first like sat down and had that first initial conversation.
Right. There's something special about being able to learn about each other in this way as everybody's learning about us as we're talking about it, right? That means some of the questions are going to be a little bit more raw, and maybe the response is a little bit more raw too, because you have no idea why the heck I asked some of those questions. And that's what we're here for.
I was thinking back to, my kid was pretty young, but I remember the first time that me and your wife and my ex-husband and I went to dinner. You remember this? Like when we went to dinner together? And that was before like I had even began my healing journey. And I was starting to walk into the space of like, how do I show up as me and let people accept me for me in what can sometimes be a society in an area where you're expected to like operate and live at this like tip top perfection and act like everything's okay. And I was struggling at that time. We were pretty soon after that going to be walking through a divorce. And I didn't know that at the time. But I remember sitting with you and Adele and just feeling like I could be me. Like I felt so safe and so loved and so unjudged. And it's just funny to see. Like that was our first time hanging out without other people around. And now we're doing that in front of everyone.
Yeah. Does it feel the same?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like it feels better. I mean, I've grown since then, and like I know you have, and now you guys have a kiddo welcome into the world. I would have not have been able to do this 2 years ago. I think that I struggled so much at the beginning of my journey to find safety, period, like in the world, let alone in myself, in order to know that I can step out and journey in this way in such a exposing and vulnerable and authentic way.
I think that's super powerful. And I think this goes to show, right, when you put in effort, when you take the time to just listen to yourself and to give yourself the years sometimes that it takes to heal, that there is purpose, right? That there is things that come from that there is like healing is actually real. And sometimes in the worst of it, right, it doesn't feel that way. But I think at its best times, it's things like this where you can latch on to something new, and you can, I don't know, really see yourself. You look back and you're like, 2 months ago, I wouldn't have even seen myself do something like that.
I remember at one point in my journey, I was talking to my therapist and I was like, hey, so it's all darkness. I don't see light anywhere. I don't know if it is like, if I'm closer to the light, if I keep going down this tunnel, or if I just completely turn around and run the opposite direction back to where I started. Like, whatever gets me back to the light, I want that. And that was a hard time in my life. Like, that was a time where I was struggling so much. And I didn't know it was possible to be able to ride the waves of life in a way that allowed me to stay here, stay connected to my body. But when you're raised with a certain level of trauma, you disassociate and you don't realize how disconnected you are. And that process of coming back to your body can be so hard because all of that shit that you disassociated from, you have to now live through it. You have to live through that pain. You have to live through that struggle and that heartache and that loneliness and that fear. Like everything you pushed away, you now have to let move through you. It's like energy. It has to move through you. I'd like us to share our triumph. Like I'd like us to share like the beautiful thing that we're now able to experience because of all that hard work.
Yeah, no, I think when I think about my story, there's a lot of different seasons, right? Things that have changed. It feels like as soon as I get out of one problem, it comes right back in a new way. But I think it's this idea of when we have to go through things alone. Shame just teaches us that we are unique, that there is no one else that struggles with this, that I am strange and I'm weird and I am uniquely broken. Allowing people, each other, to know that we are not alone, and but also allowing, like, I think as we go and kind of have maybe some different topics that we discuss, I think what we'll come to a realization of is a lot of these things we go through are very similar and they're expressed in different ways. But right, you're not crazy for friends that throw you out, that don't want you. You're not crazy for parents that never truly got you and never really wanted you. They just wanted what you could be, right? Like, or spouses that are harmful or hurtful sometimes, right? Or maybe all the time, right? You're not crazy for having gone through that, and it's not your fault for having gone through that. And I think as we go piece by piece and unpack some of those things, right? Like, my hope is that you can come in as Nicole, or you can come in as whoever you are listening to this, and maybe have a little bit more peace, maybe have a little bit less anxiety, maybe find that some of these things actually don't have to be just how it is. Yeah, I think that's my hope as we kind of go through our stories, right? To kind of digest them in a way where you can relate, where you can maybe learn something, not from us, right, but from what we've gone through, and then maybe at the other end of this, we all feel a little bit less crazy.
I think something that's helped me the most is, does this feel light or does this feel heavy? And if it feels light, then that's me. That's what feels true. That's what I want to lean more into. And if it feels heavy, then that's something I don't want to lean into. I have no desire to lean into anything that feels heavy. And that doesn't mean that life doesn't happen. That doesn't mean trials don't happen or tribulations don't happen. But practically speaking, it does mean that sometimes I have to say, no, I can't go hang out with my best friend as much as I want to. Because what feels light for me in my body, what feels true for me, is having a night at home resting. That's where the peace comes in. The peace amidst the storm, the calm in the middle of what can be complete chaos around us. And that peace that surpasses all understanding. And it's not always easy, but that's the only way to have that.
So who is Nicole, right? Like as we're learning about you, who are you? You've got a kid,
I do.
right?
I have a beautiful 7-year-old daughter. She's very sweet. Who am I? That is a hard question to answer in a
Yeah.
very short span. I think for me, like I'm someone who loves people and I love life, but I just see it. Like I can see the beauty all around me. I can see the beauty in the people. I can see the purpose, the bigger picture and purpose of what I've gone through and how it's gotten me exactly where I am now. And as much as I don't want to repeat any of that ever again, because it wasn't very fun to walk through, I can see how it's been used to bring me back to myself, to make it so that I can encourage others to also come back to themselves, regardless of their past and what's going on. Just like everyone else, I'm on my journey and we're all at different stages, but I'm to the part of my journey where I'm surrendering. All day, every day, I'm just surrendering and trying to live in the moment as much as possible. And so Nicole today may be very different than Nicole in 3 hours, which may be very different than Nicole tomorrow. And that's the beauty of living, I think. Who's Brock?
Brock is a happy husband to a sweet woman named Adele, father to Lennon. I've got 2 little fur babies as well. I'm an entrepreneur. My drive in life is I love to overthink everything, right? I think people can relate on that. I love to find inefficiencies and help solve them. That's what I do for my job. But I think what I do in life is I just like to be a friend. I like to be present. I like to cut through the bullshit and just actually get to know people. And that has led me in some interesting directions and opportunities over my life so far. I think in today, Brock is happy. I could say that. And that is something I've not been able to say all of my life, most of my life. I think I had a great childhood. I just think it took me a long time to figure out how to allow people to actually get to know me. And I think the more important thing is to find out who is safe and who is not, right? There's a space where when you tell your story, you need to know who's safe to receive it. That piece specifically is a huge part of my story, is being burnt very badly by people who just weren't safe to know me or hear me or receive me. As this goes on and I learn more about myself too, right? I'm sure, just as you said, Nicole, that answer will change. But today, Brock is just a guy who got a random text from a friend who he hadn't seen in a long time to say, come along. Like, let's do something. Let's build something here and just be real and talk about it. And so that's where we are. That's who Brock is.
No, thank you for sharing. And thank you for receiving me. And I know I told you this on the call that we had, but when I called you, there was no expectation for you to come onto this podcast with me. And then as soon as you started responding, I was like, I want this to be the podcast. Like, this is real. This is raw. This is what the world needs. This is what I needed. And so I just thank you so much for accepting that random text message and hopping on a call in between being a husband and a dad and saying yes to this journey with me. And I'm excited for all the listeners that are in this, that are going to hear what we're talking about, just because if you're this far into this podcast at this point, then you're so ready and willing to step into, or to continue to step into your truth. Like, there's something that we're saying or that you already know to be true to your heart that resonates about how we really are supposed to show up to love one another, to love ourselves, to love the world around us. And I am just very excited to unpack all of this slowly, one story, one episode at a time.
I think I'm excited to just learn. I think to learn alongside of you, to learn alongside of myself, even as I'm speaking. And I'm a verbal processor, if you haven't figured that out. And so I think there can be some nitty gritty to it. But I think at the end of the day, what my hope, to speak for me, of this is that there would just be some peace, a measure of peace that I can receive, but that I can also give from just having a space like this, to be able to have some fun, to break up the monotony of a week, right? By just getting to sit down and talk. I think there's only good in that. I think in today, dear listener, what you could expect is going forward, we'll have different topics every week that we kind of dig into. And of course, we'll get off track because that's what people do. The idea is to really adventure into some of these spaces that maybe aren't talked about as much, right? All of these things that we all deal with. I'm excited to kind of dig into some of those, to bring some people on, to see, man, okay, in our network, in our community that we have, like, what's the story there, and to help tell it.
So basically what we're telling you guys is that you get to sign up with 2 verbal processors. We're going to get distracted and off topic, but are going to show up, and we're going to be here. And we're going to invite you guys into that. So this is our trailer of what's to come. We'll be back soon and hope that you guys can join us then.